Hello everybody, Ben Wong, clinical counselor from Vancouver. I am your host for this episode of Mindful Digitality Webcast. An important issue to keep in mind when considering and understanding any sort of behavioral conditions, mental health conditions or addictive behaviors, is the issue of prevalence. Okay, prevalence. Prevalence, the issue of prevalence. The word describes how frequently, how common, or in other words, in more statistical or more of a mathematical sense, what portion of the entire population, okay, what portion of the population of the society tend to run the risk of struggling with this particular condition. Okay, and in the case of video gaming, problem video gaming or gaming disorder, the trick, as mentioned before, is that we want to avoid the trap in which people would just go around and whenever they see people seemingly using their devices, seemingly on their gaming consoles longer than we expect, then we automatically label them as an addict or consider them to be struggling with certain problems, to have a problem gaming behavior. We don't want that, which is why over the last almost a decade now, prevalence studies learning what portion of the population struggles with problem video gaming is there. Okay, so some studies had been coming up on a regular basis since 2009. Why 2009? That was when a landmark study by Douglas Gentile, a psychology professor from Iowa State University, when he conducted the first major scale with a sizable sample of video gamers to learn of roughly what portion of the population struggles with video gaming. And the World Health Organization, as we know, they've included gaming disorder as a diagnosable condition in their International Classification of Diseases version 11, which came out just a few weeks ago. And also the American Psychiatric Association, their term internet gaming disorder, they've also put together criteria since 5 years ago in 2013 when they included IGD in the DSM-5. So today what I'd like to do is to quickly go through some of the criteria that these two organizations put out in evaluating whether someone falls into that category of that percentage of people who struggle with the problem. And by the way, prevalence studies over the years, they've gotten different numbers, and the range of the numbers of the prevalence rate had been between 8 to 12%. So this is how we can think about it. Roughly 10% of the population. So for every 10 gamers, every 10 people who plays video games on any platform, okay, on any platform, on a regular basis, roughly 10% of them, they do not just play, they do not just have this behavior, they struggle with video games as an actual problem affecting various functioning in various facets of their lives. So here, I'm going to quickly go through the criteria as put forth by the American Psychiatric Association, the APA, in the DSM-5. Okay, the first criterion for internet gaming disorder: excessive preoccupation. Just constantly thinking about it, constantly thinking about gaming. If when they're not gaming, they're thinking about the next time they game, or they're thinking about the last few sessions when they game, how they could improve, that sort of thing. That's the first, excessive preoccupation. Criterion number 2, withdrawal symptom. They feel jittery and they get anxious. They just don't feel like themselves. They're uncomfortable when not playing games. Criteria 3, development of tolerance. Okay, tolerating longer and longer hours of gaming in one sitting, tolerating more intense graphics, tolerating more intense or astounding content on their games. Those could be types of tolerance. Criterion 4, unsuccessful attempts to control playing. Okay, they may have some insight as to their video gaming becoming a problem, and they might have, due to that reason, begun to do something about controlling their play, but they have failed. Criterion number 5, loss of interest in previous hobbies and leisure. Now that's a big one. If you observe people with previous interests that they would engage on a regular basis, and they would actually display a fond affection towards them, but now they've stopped. Now they don't even want to go near what they used to enjoy. That and on the other hand, video gaming had become a more prominent part of their lives. That can be a problem. That fulfills this criterion itself. Criterion number 6. Continuation of excessive playing despite insight into the psychosocial consequences. So struggling with relationships, struggling internally, intrapsychically with regulating their emotions, that fulfills the criterion. Criterion number 7. Deceiving family members, therapists, and others regarding the scope of playing. So not being honest towards close ones, even towards loved ones, about the extent to which they have been gaming, or the intensity, the level of negative consequences that have brought onto them. Not being honest about those, that fulfills this criterion. The next one, criterion number 8. Use of games to escape or weaken a negative mood. Again, this relates to using games because they're so fun, they're so fast, they're usually very, very, very pleasant in the experience of playing them or using them. They're colorful, they're dazzling. They can become sort of a medication to regulate my mood when I need them to. Criterion 9, the last one, risks or loses an important relationship, job, or training career opportunity because of playing. Another way to think about potential consequences of just gaming too much, gaming to the extent of at the expense of relationships or job opportunities. Okay, people losing their jobs as a result of gaming and not getting enough sleep, or getting to work late, or if not late, tardy, and making mistakes on the job. Those are all consequences. So they form the criteria basis for IGD, okay, under the APA. Now, to fulfill a diagnosis, people would have to identify 5 out of the 9 criteria I've mentioned. Okay, so that's the DSM version of IGD, Internet Gaming Disorder. Now, gaming disorder, as classified under World Health Organization, they put forth a slightly different version of a set of criteria. Let's quickly go through them. They have to do with so gaming disorder, as they put it here, is characterized by a pattern of persistent or recurring gaming behavior manifested through 3 different ways. Number 1, impaired control over gaming, very similar to a couple of criteria that the APA put out. 2, increasing priority given to gaming to the extent that gaming takes precedence over other life interests and daily activities, understandably so. And the 3rd, continuation or escalation of gaming despite the occurrence of negative consequences. Again, both sets of criteria, they're very similar to the 3 C words that I offered the other time. Control, compulsion, and consequences, specifically negative consequences. Not to say that there can be positive consequences in playing video games, which I'll spend some time to go through in a future webcast, but we're referring to negative consequences here. So all in all, what we're trying to say is that no, not everybody with a gaming device in front of them are addicts. At the same time, it might not be a bad thing to re-evaluate for people who play video games on a regular basis, to re-evaluate periodically am I falling into the trap of video games becoming a problem? And when we see signs of them, maybe it's not a bad it's not a bad advice, not a bad piece of advice to connect with someone qualified to talk about it, to learn more, and to prevent the behavior from becoming problematic. I am Ben Wong, clinical counselor from Vancouver. You've been watching the Mindful Digitality webcast. Until the next video, bye for now.